My name is Elizabeth Nash, and my country is Bolivia for my presentation. And the mountain in the background is Mount Sajama. It's the highest peak in Bolivia. So this is Bolivia's flag. It's also known as the tricolor. The red stripe, it stands for the valor and bravery of Bolivian soldiers. The green at the bottom symbolizes the terrain, and the middle yellow stripe symbolizes Bolivia's mineral resources and wealth. And right in the center of the flag on the yellow stripe is the national coat of arms. This is the map of Bolivia. La Paz is the capital city, and you can see how Bolivia is landlocked. The economics of Bolivia include their population. It's approximately 9.12 million, with 1.5 of those residents living in or around La Paz. The industry includes mining, which is done by residents of the rural areas, usually in tin mines. It has smelting, petroleum, food, and beverages. And the agriculture, which is one of the biggest resources for the country, includes soybean farming, coffee, coca plant growing, cotton, and timber. Their exports include soybeans, natural gas, zinc, gold, and wood. Some history of Bolivia. In ancient times, around 400 BC, Spaniards, specifically Simon Bolivar, conquered the area, which had already been civilized by people of Bolivia, and he founded the city of Tiahuanaco. In colonial Bolivia, in the time frame, the Spaniards founded more cities, and the Indians were forced to work in mines, and many of them died, as well from disease. And the Indians attempted to rebel against the Spaniards, but failed, resulting in the Great Rebellion. In independent Bolivia in 1809, the independence is declared in La Paz, and Bolivia rebels against Spanish rule. However, in 1809, there was another rebellion, but that led to the declaring of independence, and Bolivia conjoined in 1825 and became independent. So General Sucre is the first president of Bolivia, and he decided that he wanted to try and unite with Peru, but the Chileans felt threatened, and the War of the Confederation happened, ending that union. So in 1879, he increased taxation on Chilean-owned nitrate companies, which naturally started another war called the War on the Pacific, and resulted in Bolivia losing a strip of coast and becoming landlocked. And luckily, in the late 19th century, the silver industry was revived with help by capital from Britain and Chile, along with technology. So they made a comeback. And in the 20th century, it was really just about wars, rebellions, coups, and revolutions. Bolivia lost power, got it back via conservatives, fought a war with Paraguay, only to be taken over by radicals who launched a revolution and regained power to Bolivia. So by the time the 21st century rolls around, the economy has grown again. There's a new president elected named Evo Morales. He was reelected in 2009. And Bolivia still remains a poor country, but it's rich in resources, tourism being the greatest. So some social makeup of Bolivia is the religion. The Roman Catholics make up about 95% of the religion, and about 5% is Protestant. The ethnicities that make up Bolivia are for the most part Indian, which are either Quechua or Aymara, and the rest are mixed ethnicities. The official language is Spanish, and the demographics are that Bolivia is in Central South America, southwest of Brazil, and has Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Chile, and Paraguay bordering it. The social relations in Bolivia are for the most part centered on family and friends. The family is the axis of the social life and structure, with most families being pretty big. And the marriages take place at a young age. There's traditional dating. The parents either know the potential suitor and their family, or they get to know the suitor before they're allowed to date their children. The women of Bolivia have a lower social status than the men, but they're seen as very important in business and trade activities such as street vending. And the primary education is available to all children. There are government-funded universities for those who qualify, as well as private universities for those that can afford it. However, due to socioeconomic factors of the family that depend on wealth and location, are who in the rural area is going to get the primary education. So in rural areas, there's mostly farming, mining, or growing coca plants in the lowlands. In the towns, there are the better jobs for people who have the education and accessibility to the trade market. These jobs include street vendors, construction workers, maids and housekeepers, plumbers, electricians, or carpenters. And the middle class is seen as the more wealthy or elite class where the education is advanced and there are better opportunities, and the professionals have the best jobs, like the doctors, lawyers, engineers, and technicians of different varieties. Sports play a big role in the social relations of Bolivia. There are many professional sports teams, including basketball and volleyball and soccer. Soccer is the most popular, and there are two stadiums for matches, but the best known stadium is the Hernando Siles in the city of La Paz. And there are quite a few current and regional issues happening in Bolivia. The most pressing problem is the issue of poverty, and about 60% of Bolivians live below the national poverty line. And the percentage is, of course, higher for the rural areas where 3 out of 4 people live in poverty, and in the indigenous areas where women and young people are particularly vulnerable to poverty. In the rural areas, it's because there's a lack of job opportunities and poor natural resource management practices, as well as limited access to basic services such as primary education, health, and sanitation, which leads us to the next current issue happening in Bolivia, which is the cocaine industry. And the Bolivian indigenous people have been growing the coca plants for thousands of years. And now that there's a rising demand for cocaine in the United States, it's restructuring their economy rapidly, seeing as Bolivia produces approximately 40 to 45% of the world's supply of coca leaf and coca paste. And the Chapar tropical rainforest area in the department of Cochabamba alone supplies 70% of the nation's coca leaf crop. And this is a problem because cocaine is being trafficked into the United States as well as other countries at an increased rate. So if it's producing enough economy for the rural and indigenous areas to survive on, then it's going to continue to inflate. And despite efforts of programs to increase the use of farming crops through crop substitution, such as rice, bananas, citrus, pineapples, more small farmers are opting to grow coca leaves instead because the amount of income is substantially greater. Which brings us to the next issue of poverty, to President Morales, who just a couple of weeks ago won this year's election to become president for another term. He is the country's first president with indigenous roots, so it makes him very popular among the rural population. He has successfully managed to grow the economy at a healthy rate, shrink inequality, and reduce the number of people that are living in poverty. However, the problem is that he may have a prolonged term of power if he's elected again. And with the new generation of Caudillos being anti-American, the engagement on development, military cooperation, and drug enforcement efforts will be limited. So the lawmakers see this as a problem because the pattern of prolonged power is unhealthy for the region, and it enables him to appoint allies and electoral and judicial bodies and build patronage networks that turn out the vote, so he will always win the election. So I found something else to share that is a little something extra. It's called the Death Road, and it's in Bolivia. It is a huge tourist destination for mountain bikers and I guess leisure bikers, but it is actually very terrifying. And you can see that where the bus is getting ready to fall off the cliff, and there's a cross because so many people die and have accidents and drop off of the cliff. So I just found that kind of interesting. So hope you enjoyed and learned something new.